Hello everyone, and welcome back to Make Believe. Well, we're playing World and Economica. Last time, what did we have? We had the relaxation. So at first we had Yoshiharu going to get a not a deposit but an extraction to get some money to show to Hagana a tangible result of her efforts, to show that she's actually doing something with her theory and the program. So she actually paid him back the money that Lisa owed him for a long time. And then there was Sunday where they were all relaxing. Lisa and Haga was basically having a picnic. But at the end of the day, Yoshiharu got an email. He has been scouted. So he has been talking to him, and now he's finally going to meet the guy. So we got to the hotel, and we're about to meet him. That's where we stopped. So let's continue and meet the person. The guest you have been expecting has arrived. The waiter must have been talking to Barton Kladwiesen. My heart beat painfully. Oh, have him come over here. What I heard was the heavy, deep voice of a middle-aged man. Understood. Please go ahead. The waiter showed me the way, and I resolved myself to move forward. How does Barton even look like? And then I turned diagonally to the left and peered into the segregated space. What I saw was a man in a suit with suspenders holding up his pants. His black hair was combed back all the way, and he was sitting on the sofa with a phone to his ear. Okay, sorry. Gotta go. I got guests, so please just handle that. Thanks. Barton then hung up the phone, placed it on the coffee table, and then stood up straight with his hands on his thighs. And here we go. Barton Kladwiesen. He wasn't that tall. Oh, this music though. But when he stood up, it was as intimidating as a whole mountain moving. He didn't have his jacket on, so the shape of his great belly could clearly be seen. A leading figure in the financial district. If I were to have drawn a picture using my imagination, it would have fit his image to a dot. And then, when Barton looked at me after standing up, his smile froze for a second. Man, am I surprised that he is a kid? He had quite firm features compared to his figure, but it wasn't something scary. Even his wide-open arms conveyed a generosity that made me feel like I was about to get hugged. Mr. Yoshiharu Kawara? He spoke my name with a beautiful pronunciation, a sign of his wealth. I nodded, and not willing to be outdone, stared back at him right in the eye. Yes, Mr. Barton Kladwiesen. You can just call me Barton. You've done well, young investor. He suddenly stuck out his right hand. His sausage fingers, which looked almost fake due to their size, had not an ounce of oil on them. His hand was large, simple and firm, without a ring to show his wealth. This music is give me a scene of important, serious, classy. When I took his hand, he grasped back almost painfully, and then grabbed my shoulders firmly with his left hand. Your body's well built. Fabulous. Thank you. I usually spend half my time down there. When I shake hands with people who've always worked on the moon, I get complaints that I was about to break their finger bones. By down there, he must have meant down on Earth. Yeah, I was thinking down in the lobby for some reason, which doesn't really make much sense. Those who proclaimed that the moon was the vanguard of the human race would refer to the moon, to the Earth, as down there. I guess Barton was one of them. Well, take a seat. Is what I'd like to say, at least, but... I looked at Barton, and he smiled back. Aren't you hungry? You came right after trading ended for the day, right? I paused a bit before nodding. Well then, let's go have some dinner. Is that alright? Yeah, sure. Actually, I traveled up from Earth today and arrived just a while ago. And you know how the food on the orbital elevator is totally not suitable for human consumption? Yeah, you know, Yoshiharu, the guy that has never been in the orbital elevator. And so, my emails replies came pretty fast, right? Well, it was because I was bored out of my mind. He reached for his jacket, which had been thrown sloppily on the back of the sofa. I thought he was going to put it on, but instead he picked it up and threw it over his shoulder. Barton was quite dignified. And the place for VIPs in the back of a cafe belonged to the highest class hotel on the moon. In addition, he didn't need to have money or a credit card to the waiter when exiting. Needed your hand. Thank you for your continued patronage and for choosing us. The waiter bowed as he spoke. There was actually something I really wanted to eat, but how about you? Is there something you'd like to eat? No matter how I tried to paint myself as a ruffian day trader, I had to behave myself in front of this adult, as I'd play easily into the hands of even Lisa. When I could only reply in grunts, Barton slapped his big hand on my back. Hey now, you're concentrating so much on your stocks that you can't think straight yet? Your eyes are all stiff, you know? He didn't go on to point out that it was because I was nervous. He was broad-minded and kind, like an uncle. Well then, should we just go with what I like? Yeah. I'd always have this when I was in New York, but for some reason, the stuff here on the moon is just tastier, you know? Maybe it's like alloys, where the low gravity helps everything mix together. I see. I had no clue what he was talking about. Barton exited through the center of the front foyer. The doorman noticed immediately and signaled towards where all the black limousines were parked. Even if Barton took big strides, the limousine would arrive by the time he made it to the roundabout. We're back to the entrance. The music's very nice. Barton drew his chin down in satisfaction, handed the young doorman a 100 bill, and patted him on the shoulder with his big hands. Oh, that's his suit? I did not notice the orange pants. Were we not able to see his pants on the other shot? I'm surprised, and I did not expect an orange suit. I thought it would be just a classical black or perhaps a gray suit. First time in a car? He said to me when I hesitated even though the car door was open. Sullen, I got in swiftly. The car seat felt like it was about to swallow me up, and in front of me were a delicate wine glass and a small bottle of wine. There was even a car phone on the armrest. While I was dazed by the insides of the limousine, Barton shoved himself in through the opposite side, and the door closed elegantly. Ooh. To the Maria Biala, please. Understood. The driver nodded at Barton's single utterance. Shall I depart? If you please. Understood. Oh, and the back. Nice little change. The car started to advance slowly. At the same time, a black partition separating the driver and the rear passenger seat started to go up. Once the partition fully reached the ceiling, Barton relaxed down into the black leather seat. I am also noticing the change in the expression in the mouth. This was a habit of mine for when I had my own personal chauffeur. Huh? There was this time I got eavesdropped on and information had leaked out. I had thought I had given the guy not a bad pay, but in either case, let's just say that he received a pretty nice pension. Through the tinted windows, I saw the lights outside flow by, as if mystically caressing Barton's face. He turned to me and laughed at me boldly. A cutthroat financial district filled with desire. I could even chime in. Man, I sure was surprised at how young you were. He spoke with oddly precise timing so as to prevent the situation from settling into silence. Right? I knew he would be surprised by that. You didn't know? Yeah, no personal information appears anywhere in the data provided by the investment contest. The only thing that show up was your handle name for the contest, Hal. I had totally thought you got the name from some satellite system, but apparently you got it from your real name. The name of your investment fund, the Britannica. Is that where you're from? I somehow managed to direct it back to him. Oh, no. I just like the history. I especially like the Victorian era. The Britannica comes from Pax Britannica. Doesn't it sound like something that could definitely collect riches? I think it sounds really cool. Yup. Sounding cool is the most important. The day you name a fund with Siberia Fund would be the day your investment performance froze solid. Exchanging body gestures, Barton talked in high spirit. The car gradually made its way through the many bustling streets of Newton City. The pedestrians were all well dressed, but I wondered how well dressed they seemed to someone who ride around casually in a limousine like this. But man, you really are young. How old are you anyway? 16. I see. I'm 52. I see. 16, huh? Almost the same age, you know? Just 30-60 years difference. Barton repeated the word 16 to himself a bunch of times. Then, straining against the seatbelt, turned towards me. I guess he's still surprised at the 16 thing. When I was your age, I had glasses that were as thick as the bottles of milk bottle. And I did silly things like deliver milk. Of course, I invested all my earnings. But, I see. I guess one doesn't like to age. Barton murmured to himself, eyes shut. I realized it was kind of hard for me to respond when he suddenly shot his eyes open. I saw your investment data. Marvelous stuff. Thanks. Oh, don't be shy. Among the stated 50,000 investors, you're around 3rd or 4th, right? That's great achievement. But I'm still far off from 1st, sir. Yep, that is true. But it's not really something you should be worried over. Mr. Trochet, right? He's from Earth. Got an MBA from Harvard, and it's been unofficially decided that he'd be starting at Platinum Smith. He's been called a once-in-a-decade genius over there. Don't worry about it, if you can't beat him right now. When Barton said that, I was a bit surprised. How did he find all that out? The financial world is a small world. Information about those who strut the stride and true path naturally get around. Usually those guys have all been lured away by the big players, dangling lucrative compensations in front of them. How much do you think Platinum Smith would pay for an MBA brat in his mid-20s? I end up quoting a high compensation that I had heard somewhere. 300,000 moles, perhaps? Close. A salary of 200,000 moles. Actually, surprising close. 50% off, but still. Even I thought it was probably a bit high, and Barton corrected me. Plus, the bonus is probably at least 200 moles. If he does well, that'd go up. Beyond that, he also got 5 free rides on the orbital elevator in first class. Riding first class on the orbital elevator. It's so ridiculous that I never do it out of pocket. How much do you think a one-way ride costs? I couldn't even imagine. I shook my head and Barton chuckled. One person, one way is 500,000 moles. You could build a house for that much. And he just wrote it today, mind you. 100,000? And 5 rides would total 2.5 million moles. It's really easy to lure people from Earth using privileges on the orbital elevator. Besides, they'd surely all get annoyed of it and stop riding it. Barton laughed satirically and continued. And thus, the nameless rookies get called on by us minor guys. Sorry for not being staff from the personal department of Platinum Smith or E.J. Rockberg. There was no way I'd be complaining about this. I shook my head hurriedly from side to side, and Barton broke out in laughter, leaning back. Oh, it's not so bad being with one of the little guys. If you got promoted to Platinum Smith, you'd find yourself mired in all sort of internal politics. I really can't recommend them to guys aiming to do a lifetime of trading. Oh, really? Yeah. Once you survive 5 years on Schrodinger Street, you'd earn all the money you ever need to live on. Beyond that, you really have to consider what you want out of life to pick the next step. If it's power or fame, you'd aim to be a partner of a major investment bank. Those junkies who get all engrossed in making money wouldn't join any organization. Like me. Or perhaps... Barton narrowed his eyes until his eyelids paralleled the horizon at dawn. Like you? There's no harm in calling out to people with promising futures. Didn't I say I saw your investment data? The way you gambled in the early stages was especially great. Okay, early stages was all Yoshiharu. After that, it was a bit of Yoshiharu and Hagana, so it's interesting that he's pointing out the early stages, where it was just Yoshiharu. Maybe he's talking about that suspicious stock. It was when I couldn't depend on Hagana's program at all, and I had to use my gut instincts. Yeah, exactly. Indeed, it appears that I was the first to contact you. The reason were those trades. Organizations hate people who bet everything on a single stock. Even the small tier funds would have second doubts. Those who take big moves win big, but they also lose big. Furthermore, they also have big attitudes. Barton opened his mouth wide and laughed devilish. Many people think playing with fire like that was a privilege of the boss. They're all bratty hotshots who got big just like that. As for me, I love doing foolish things with those reckless guys, and they like me for that. The lights outside brushed past his face, and Barton shot me a glance with narrowed eyes. I thought to myself whether this feeling was what girls felt when they've been successfully hit on. Instant comparison? Well, we can continue this while we eat. We're here. The car made a gentle curve and stopped in front of the restaurant. The doorman opened the door promptly, and Barton got out first. After a few words, the doorman nodded politely and sent a small message via transmitter onto his sleeves. As expected, Barton didn't need to explicitly pay for the limousine. I realized what it truly meant to have reputation. This place has some great meats. Steak? Oh, the steak sure is delicious, but I didn't say I love history. If it's about what guys in suspenders eat in the good old financial districts, there's only one thing. Barton had his jacket on his shoulders as usual, and even though I wasn't really that well dressed, we were both greeted with the utmost respect when we entered the high-class restaurant. So, what are we gonna have? Steak tartare. Barton answered me like a kid. I have no idea what the heck steak tartare. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. There it is. I guess this is a steak tartare. Look at that, the two eating it together. Now we're getting back to some more usual music, which is not bad either. The meal was, to put simply, delicious. There was no other way to describe it. Barton ordered without looking at the menu, effortlessly requesting one item after another. He drank a lot of vodka from shot glasses made from crystal suitable for jewelry, and laughed out loud after telling me it was a great vodka because even the pros wouldn't be able to tell the difference in taste between different types of vodka. After I had said that I never really had any alcohol before, I was given some soda. Although the appetizer berry liquor I had was sweet and delicious. Steak tartare is simply a dish made by mixing raw meat with various ingredients and pounding it, and it felt appropriate that it be a favorite among the quick-tempered and large-minded men of the financial district. We talked a bit about investments, but there was a lot of conversation on personal matters. He asked me where I lived now, whether I went to school, and what I was going to do in the future. No matter how lightly you put it, Barton had totally won me over. It was probably only that he wanted to keep close by a freak who had attained such investment performance at a young age. But for me, it was as if I had died and gone to heaven. However, there was only one phrase he didn't say. Would you like to work for me? Yeah, that phrase would have been very important. So, very interesting that he never mentioned that. I thought that perhaps because it was my first time meeting him. However, his handshake when we parted was enthusiastic and long. Tonight was great. I'll email you again. He even dropped me off all the way over at the main street in the 6th outed section. Around us were all trucks and personal cars, so a black limousine was totally out of the blue. I had to say, I couldn't help feeling proud of myself letting everyone see me shaking hands with Barton in front of the limo. I watched the limo until its taillights disappeared into the depths of the streets, then pretty much skipped my way back to the church. It was already 11 p.m. I likely get into a whole lot of trouble if I carelessly let myself get caught by the police, but there were still a lot of people walking around at this hour. I chose a path with as many pedestrians as possible, ran through them, and then switched over to a back alley halfway. Today was the best day of my life. And it wasn't because of some petty reasons like having had Barton pay for everything. Oh yeah, I can imagine. Rather, it was because I had just a small glimpse of the super high-class world of Newton City and walking streets. Yeah, he basically had a taste of his dream. The upper echelons of Newton City met the upper echelons of humankind. Barton was the real deal, both in wealth and as an investor. It was the kind of person who called out to me. I was acknowledged. While walking the quiet down residential streets, I gritted my teeth and struggled to hold back the temptation to shout out. And thus, getting to high spirits, I started jumping from rooftop to rooftop until I arrived at the church. There, I bumped into Lisa, who looked like she was drinking at a table in the yard on the second level. Well, I wasn't really obligated to tell Lisa that I was going to be walking out late at night, but I felt a bit of guilt. However, after glancing at me, Lisa sighed, drank the wine in her glass, and then got up from her chair. Come in promptly through the door. What about dinner? I already had mine. Didn't I tell you before? I know, but with how happy you look, I was wondering if perhaps you were hungry. After she said that, my stomach did growl. I had immediately thought I had gotten full before, but perhaps it was just because I was nervous. I'll wait. Okay, so calm down. Having said that, Lisa returned to her room and shut the window. I did as I was told. I went down to the first floor, entered the church, and headed towards the main residence. The lights being left on had a certain tranquility to it in the early hours of the night. Lisa came down shortly and started warming up a meal for me. Where did you go? It didn't sound like she was grilling me, so I answered honestly. Newton City. To meet a friend? I gathered the reason for the pause from Lisa's slightly teasing smile on her face when she turned around over her shoulder to look at me. Is this slightly teasing smile? Huh. Like I'd have friends. I figured you'd say something like that. How? Well then. A girl? Quit joking. You wouldn't even believe that. Okay, sorry. Lisa shrugged and returned to cooking. And then, once she laid out various reheated dishes on the table, I was drawn in by the smell and came to the table as well. I guess that feeling of satedness was nervousness, after all. Yeah, because he was nervous in that situation, his stomach kinda compressed, so when he thought it was full, was not really the actual full. I dug into the food greedily. I have a bad habit of prying into people's personal matters, so I would love to ask more, but digging into the pilaf, I was chomping on my food and looking at Lisa wordlessly. I'm going to stop, because you'd get angry. Good choice. I nodded and Lisa poked my head lightly. Besides, I thought to myself, it wasn't like she was my mom, but she wasn't pushy. It wasn't annoying or anything. Well, there's something else I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, what is it? I got up and looked at Lisa because she had quite a serious tone in her voice. What is it? Okay, when you left today, did you pass Chris on the way? Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that, the whole thing with Chris and the older guy that came to the church looking for Lisa. I wonder what that was about. Oh yeah, the big ass dude that was Chris' dad's, right? Yep, he sure was a big ass dude. Quit copying me. Lisa laughed happily at my comment. Well, it's about that. Oh, what was that? It doesn't look like a delivery. Well, you see, Lisa was squirming with her words. I collected the scattered pilaf into my mouth as I wondered what she was going on about. She was glancing left and right, and then timidly spoke like Hagana. Chris' family wants to entrust to you their savings. I'm sorry, what? Chris' family wants to entrust to you their savings. That kind of felt like coming out of left field. And why was Yoshiharu not invited to the conversation, only Lisa? What? What? I instantly exclaimed back, showing rice everywhere. Lisa made a face and drew back, but I didn't care and asked her again. What did you say? Hey, watch what you're doing. Well, they heard about what you guys were doing from Hagana. I stared at Lisa collecting the rice kernels, and eventually she started spilling the beans. Chris' family also borrowed money from Toyama. In other words, you know what I'm getting at, right? Chris, who'd wear clothes that didn't fit her and would help out with deliveries while skipping out on lunch. Her family. I quickly recognized what would drive them to entrust all their money to me, as well as the pitiful state they were in. They're different from us, since they're running a business. It would be bad for their money to instantly disappear, since they wouldn't be able to restock. Besides, there isn't a single person in this part who would be able to pay back a loan instantly. Therefore, they figured that if it was all going to be taken away, they might as well choose a way that could potentially earn them some return. The flavor of the pilaf turned to nothingness. The pilaf has been loose, and the feeling of chewing on them was great. But now it felt like I was chewing on rubber. I swallowed, drank the soup, and then said, "How much?" 30,000 moles? My first thought was that it was a really tiny sum. Working and saving up the money ended up with a nest egg of 30,000 moles. 'Twas as if that gorgeous world of Newton City was a lie. And the depth? 80,000 moles. Wait, more than twice? Well, that family has really struggled, so I don't want to hear. I know everyone has their own issues. Particularly, my hometown was full of dudes like that. It was all stories of sadness and misery and uselessness. A lot of them were so terrible they could only talk happily if they were detached from reality. Everyone was pretty much the same. If that weren't the case, they wouldn't have come as far as they moved. In moving to and fro over a few tens of thousands of miles. And Hagana? I ask again, what did Hagana say? Hagana had second thoughts when I initially proposed trading with real money. Regardless of whether I wanted to accept the money, her opinion was more important. Interesting that you're taking Hagana's opinion as very important here. She said she wanted to accept it. Yeah, because I feel like her opinion changed when you showed her the actual money. And then Lisa continued. She said that she wanted to make a difference. I was easily able to imagine her nodding with those sharp eyes and a totally serious face. Success changed people. That statement was true, but Hagana probably selflessly wanted to help Chris and thought that it would work out. Even if you accept the money, what you're doing isn't really going to change, right? Lisa asked me. She was right. Even if we were to take in other people's money, what we'd be doing would remain essentially unchanged. However, there were two problems. There's a chance we'd lose money. I'm sure they know full well that fact. At least with this place, there was a sense of security, since there was someone like me who could put up the debt if the worst should happen. However, other people obviously didn't have an idiot squatter like me around. Slowly but surely, they get cornered by the debt. Well, they said that at this rate, they'd clearly never be able to pay off the debt. Thus, they wanted to entrust the money to you. There's another issue. What? I had to pause for a second, but told myself this was something that had to be said, and proceeded to say it. Compensation. I pronounced that word clearly without running away. I looked Lisa right in the eyes with all seriousness. There's the issue of compensation. I don't plan on working for free. Lisa's expression truly changed. She looked at me with an uneasy expression, holding back a huge amount of feelings, whether it was an urge to cry or an urge to yell angrily. Compensation. That's right. I took a risk to experiment with this. It wasn't easy getting such investment technology into my hands. Furthermore, I have an agreement to pay my due share of the usage fee for Hagana's program. I don't care what Chris' family situation is. However, I won't do it without some sort of compensation. I am Iron Man. I took a deep breath and recalled Barton's dignified demeanor. An investor. It was an extremely theatrical declaration, but I didn't retreat a centimeter from Lisa. I was even prepared to get in an argument and part ways. However, Lisa slowly opened her mouth at the end of the staring contest. That compensation, how much would it come out to be? 20% of the earnings. The traditional cut hedge funds took. They'd gather money from the customers and trade according to the decisions of the fund manager. They would take 20% of the earnings. In my reply, Lisa twisted her lips as if she'd just eaten something bitter. You're not going to lower that anymore, right? I'm not doing this to play around. She scattered her strong emotions slowly with a deep breath. Her hair, which had started to stand on end, gradually settled. And then, at the end, she slowly closed her eyelids and gave a big sigh. I got it. I'll tell them. Of course, I'll pay Hagana's compensation from that. Yeah, I don't doubt you on that. So then, what are you doubting me on? She was about to say something, but caught herself, shut her mouth, and then smiled bitterly while refining what she wanted to say. In the name of Christ, I had to admonish avarice when I see it. I guess we never come to an agreement in this life. Yep. Although I also understand that you aren't just a slave to greed. At least, he couldn't be someone who'd offer his own assets so easily. Right? He did. He was the one that came up and offered to pay for the 50,000 debt that she had. Granted, he also asked for something returned so that he could make those 50,000 back, if not more, but still. It was 50,000 moles. I was truly happy that I got complimented, and my lips formed a curve. AKA, he smiled. Therefore, I'm not admonishing you any. Furthermore, what? You're so annoyingly mature at this moment. My face got more strained at Lisa's right laugh. I scratched my head haphazardly, and then reached for the rest of the meal. I'll handle Hagana. If you could do that, then that would be great. I didn't want to butt heads with Hagana over profits. Even if we only partially disagreed on something, I didn't think she'd be the type to back off. But how? Lisa asked me with a truly puzzled face from across the table. Who in the world did you meet? I intentionally scoffed down my meal with my mouth opened wide and didn't reply. She'd probably hate me if I told her it was an arrogant resident of a greed-laden district. Nor did Lisa push on any further. Thanks for the meal. Having said that, I forcefully ended the conversation. The next day, Hagana accepted the compensation terms readily and relayed them to Chris over the phone. They too accepted readily. The terms could be illustrated thus. Let's say we took in 30,000 moles and doubled its worth, then 6,000 moles. 20% of the 30,000 mole profit would be paid out to us as compensation, out of which I'd pay Hagana's share for the programming and retained 4,800 moles for myself. So yeah, he would take 20% of the profits, and out of that 20%, 20% of that would go to Hagana. The small reward wasn't bad. On top of that, I was more insisted on this additional term to the agreement. That is, if we should lose money, then we wouldn't be held accountable. Anyhow, we weren't the ones who broached the subject initially. It'd be too much to then hold us accountable for losses. They wanted to gamble, not us. Chris' dad was so huge he made Barton look like a midget, and he had the dignity of a laborer. Still, he accepted all my demands and bowed deeply. Lisa had a sour look on her face, but it was we who had the skill and the means. Being able to monetize such a skill to the maximum extent was a totally natural thing to do. I told myself proudly. Besides, Hagana didn't even have an ounce of the talk of compensation and what happened to losses in her head. Instead of that, I was staring at the 30,000 moles Chris' dad bought. She muttered forcefully, I'll make it grow. Lots. Hagana was right. I had gotten noticed by Barton, so it wasn't the time to be making lazy trades either. However, I myself was surprised at the fact that I didn't have to get worked up over Hagana's comment, let alone worry about it. Hagana's program was that good. With the exception of a few minutes a day, it was constantly monitoring and analyzing 1,000 stocks on the virtual market and 4,000 stocks on the real one. That's a lot of stocks. It was more accurate and performant than me trying to flip rapidly back and forth between all these various displays until my eyes dried out. It could perform calculations similar to what I can by staring at a single stock, but it can do that on many stocks in a fraction of a second. Furthermore, the statistical spread that I only vaguely understood could be calculated exactly, and it shortened the amount of time I had spent per stock. Better still, I had stopped chasing stocks that had lopsided investment structures or felt strange to me. Hagana's program could find one money tree after another without my needing to chase after dangerous stocks, so there was no point in taking additional risk. My main workflow turned to buying and selling according to the program's instructions, then relaying what went well and what went poorly back to Hagana. Next to me would be Hagana puzzling over the results and solving arcane equations by hand. Arcane? But I stopped asking her day after day what she was doing. As days passed, the number of Greek letters in Hagana's electronic notebook increased. The variable amount. Beta, gamma, delta, theta, kappa, etc. All of them had mathematical meanings, but the only one I could understand was alpha. Interesting enough, there was no mention of omega. Amongst all the mind-boggling Greek letters that populate investment theory, alpha was one which had a simple and clear meaning. It was simply how much better you were performing over the market average. There wasn't one thing more boring in the world of investing than the market average. Any monkey with money would be able to perform as well as the market average by investing a little into every stock in the market. Anyone with a brain would instantly understand that taking care to avoid falling stocks would lead to easily winning over the market average. Alpha was an indicator of how much smarter you were than a monkey. My alpha value had ups and downs. However, Hagana was trying to establish with her formulas a way for me to keep my alpha consistently at my highest levels. It wouldn't be affected by my health, the situation, or my mood. She was working out consistent best performance using formulas. Hagana was sitting next to me, converting everything I did into formulas. Therefore, the more refined the program got, the more free time I got. And the more free time I got, the more I could trade calmly. Once I started trading calmly, I realized there were many things I didn't see before, and many things I didn't have time to feel out. Maybe the reason for my slump before teaming up with Hagana was that I didn't have enough breathing room. It was probably like sharpening a knife to the point where the edge would be all chipped. If I had to say one thing I wasn't too happy with, it was probably that Hagana's program was so good that I stopped living on the edge while trading. He's now in a comfortable position. There's very little risk. If I had time to get involved in dangerous stunts, it was better to spend the time to earn money safely. Reading the news, looking at a company's financial affairs, and taking the mood of the market, it wouldn't be strange to say that all-for-nothing trades were big gambles. Besides, right now we were entrusted with other people's money, and we were already hitting it big, so there was no reason to take such dangerous risks. Thus, I laughingly dismissed my thoughts of it being boring and empty as a useless childish worries. My funds increased further over the week. I had 47 million moles in the virtual market and 92,000 in the real market. Okay, 92,000. With the 30% increase, Chris' dad's part had increased to an amount just short of 40,000 moles. It wasn't a bad result on its own, but we were still far from resolving the debt situation. I had made haughty demands to Chris' dad's, saying that I'd keep 20% of the gains and wouldn't take responsibility for the losses. However, I was a little unsure whether the prophets here would live up to my arrogance. You know what? We're gonna stop here. Before Chris gets to know about the results. So yeah. So we met Barto. We had a taste of Schrödinger Street, high class. Barto seems to enjoy our company, but I don't know how much that was a facade or if he was really interested in Yoshiharu like that. And he never mentioned working for him, so we need to keep an eye on that. Then there was the whole thing of Chris and her dad showing up at the church. So apparently they heard from Hagena and wanted to entrust Yoshiharu for help in dealing with their own debt. Granted, it would be a paid job and not just asking for a favor. So far, it's been making progress. But we don't know until we reach the result. I also wonder if once we reach the debt amount, is he just gonna give it back and they'll be at zero? Or if they'll be able to acquire more money than that so that they can pay the debt and they actually have some kind of funds. Of course, that's all considering that they actually reach that value. We have to see if Yoshiharu's arrogance pays off. But with all of that being said, we're done for today, so see you next time. Bye!